Today I want to talk about hopefully very helpful insight to you as well that helped me figure out why I was failing consistently at changing the same habits, sometimes even very small things. So let's dive in. First, let's observe the language. Language is quite a funny thing, and very often I think people don't pay enough attention to what people are saying or what they are saying themselves and which words they're using in which context. So let's just have a look. You probably know this. If you smoke once, you would say, I have smoked, or I smoked, I am smoking, right? If you are reading right now, once you are reading, or you've already read in your life. Same with running, right? But if you do it not only once, not only twice, but you do it regularly, all of a sudden it turns into a noun. So the verb turns into a noun. It's not something that is so active anymore. It turns into something that defines you. So all of a sudden, you are a smoker because you smoke every day. You are a reader because you read regularly. And you are a runner because you enjoy running 2 or 3 times a week, right? So that's how it develops. And this shows very well the dynamic that your habits seem to define you. So your habits sort of make your identity. So I think that's something that is very important to understand and very crucial. But most of the people have figured that out. That's the reason why you right now are watching this video and would really like to change your habits. That's why I'm focusing on habits so much, because I know that if I want to become the better version of myself, it's all going to go through systems I put in my life that we normally call habits. All right. However, I think that the insight I got not so long ago, which I was very thankful for, was that the contrary is also true. So it's not only the things you do every day that make your identity, but once you have formed an identity, it also goes the other way around, meaning that the identity shape your habits. So if you see yourself in a certain way, if you consider yourself being a runner, it will reinforce your habit of running. If you see yourself as a smoker, unfortunately, it will reinforce your habit as a smoker, because you kind of associate with everything that goes with a smoker. And isn't it great to share smoking with a group, with your colleagues, for instance, when you have a break? Or, to smoke a cigarette because it looks kind of fancy. So all of these things, they're now part of your identity and hence reinforce your habit of smoking. So that's really crucial to understand, because one question you might want to ask yourself is, who do you think you are? Because whatever you think you are, whatever you believe you are, it's kind of leaving you in some sort of pattern, and it may cause blocks for you to change. Maybe you will not be able to change simply because you have a certain image of yourself. So here it is. When I discovered this, I was like, oh, no wonder that I was failing so much. And a couple of things that actually, I'm going to dive deeper in those personal examples later in this video. But basically a couple of things that I was failing at that were strongly related with identity issues were eating healthily, starting yoga practice, and also, for instance, meditating every day. And I'm going to dive deeper into why my identity, my self-made identity, was blocking me for a certain time until I realized that this was part of the problem. First, just a little heads up, it would help me a lot, guys, if you would subscribe to my channel. I'm releasing videos every week. It revolves around habits and any other things that I find useful. And of course, I'd react to any comments you make if you're interested in particular topics. All right, so the first book that I read that actually made me realize this was the book called A Well-Designed Life from Kyra Bobinett. So she talks in the book about self-image and how when you're trying to change your habits too radically and you haven't really realized that there might be a sort of a crash between your current self and your desired future self. And both are crashing, and this can be really impairing and blocking you from changing. So one example she talks about the book in the book and that I can strongly relate to is eating. So when she was younger, she was able to eat a lot of food, and she was actually maybe not binge eating, but she was eating a lot, and she wouldn't put on weight. And a lot of people were always complimenting her on that, and she was kind of proud of that trait. And I sort of can relate to this. And the thing is, she tried at some point because she put a lot of weight. She had children and her body didn't develop in the way she wanted. And she tried a lot of things to, like diets and to try and stop eating so much or just losing weight. Until one day she realized that this self-image and her identity was standing in the way. And the problem was that she was kind of proud that she could eat so much. And it was part of her image and of her self-image that she's a big eater. So she figured that reducing portion size was definitely not the way to go for her. She had to find stuff that she could almost binge eat on. So she had to have at least once a day a huge meal and eat a lot. So how did she do it? Replacing unhealthy foods that she would normally eat a lot of by big salads, a lot of veggies, whatever it is. But she needed to feel so full in her stomach to kind of fulfill this self-image of her that she was a big eater. And I definitely relate to that. I know that it's also part of my path. This has been a part of that identity shift. So that was the first time I realized how much identity could have an impact. And now let's dive into the next book that actually helped me a lot. It's, of course, the very famous book from James Clear, Atomic Habits. And in this book, basically, chapter 2 is even called Your Habits Shape Your Identity and Vice Versa. And he also dives a bit deeper into what happens and how this can be a struggle. Also because sometimes you don't realize it, but you kind of desire a new identity, but maybe you don't believe you can be this new person, or maybe you're not that proud, or maybe there's parts of your old identity that you're proud of and that you're not ready to let go of. Whatever it is, you kind of have to work with both ways. So to shape your identity, first of all, you have to be aware of your current identity and where it is you want to go. It's both important, and you have to observe and you have to really analyze whatever the difference is, whatever the split is between the two identities, and understand where the blocks are coming from. But that's not all. Of course, you also have to work from the other side. So you have to start implementing your habits, even though you might not see yourself yet as a runner, if we take this example, right? But you can start with small steps, and it's not important that you run every day, but it's important that you run regularly enough, and even if it's just a little, but regularly enough that it starts being like more than 50% of the time you are a runner. And I'm not talking about running more of 50% of your time. That would be insane. That's not what I'm saying. But if for instance you run twice a week, 3 times a week, you become a runner if you do it consistently over time. If one week you do it and another you don't, and then you do and you don't, and you do and you don't, then you're kind of not reinforcing this identity. You're creating doubt that you're even a runner. But you have to be aware of this identity component of the whole issue. So what's the matter? Change versus identity. I think what you gotta understand is that a lot of things, when you try them, you will think, oh, this doesn't feel like me, right? And this is a typical block, a contradiction between your new habit and your old identity, as I was saying. And the problem with that, if we look deeper into it, is belief. So it's a very crucial part of change, as Charles Duhigg mentions in his very famous book, The Power of Habit. He says that they've been looking deeper into why some people really stick to new healthy habits, such as quitting alcohol, for instance. So they've been looking at case studies from Alcoholics Anonymous, and it turned out that people who cultivated their ability to believe, and people who ended up really believing that they can change for some reason, they were the ones that made it. They were the people that were able to stick to not drinking forever. So when something doesn't feel like you, can you cultivate the belief that you can become like that? That's very important. And then another dimension that's really important to understand is pride versus shame. So that's a bit something that James Clear talks about in his book Atomic Habits. But basically, pride around a certain habit is something that will help you make the habit stick for longer. So think about it. Are you proud about the new identity you want to build? Or do you feel ashamed? So that's the other side of it. Shame, right? If you feel ashamed with the new identity you're trying to build, and I think this happens a lot, when you're setting a new trend, even though it's healthy, people look at you and like, what is this? Like he's running funny, or he's doing strange stuff. Or I'll tell you this, I was at the airport once, and as a snack, my boyfriend and I brought raw broccoli. And it's healthy, right? Eating raw broccoli, nothing bad about that. I mean, I shouldn't be eating only that over the course of a day, but that was not the issue. I just wanted to snack, and I had a broccoli. You can't imagine how people looked at us. They were like, what are these people doing? But if you think about it, we thought it was funny. We could have felt ashamed, but what is there to be ashamed of to snack on broccoli? I mean, if you see what people snack on airports, if you eat like very chemical chocolate, isn't that weird or broccoli actually? Well, but so that's the issue, If you feel ashamed of a habit or something new, it's gonna be more difficult. It doesn't mean you won't make it, but if you manage to build pride around it, it's gonna help you a bunch, because every time you'll do the habit, you'll feel the pride, and at least it will be some element that will help you reinforce the loop. And that's also why it's actually so relevant to surround yourself with a group that is supporting and encouraging the new identity you're building. That's why it's where stuff like Alcoholics Anonymous or Weight Watchers or any type of group in that sense helps a lot, because you start identifying with a group, and people around you, they really are proud of you for making the steps you made. So yeah, that's something that's really important to understand. So I'd like you to reflect maybe quickly. I know this is a video, you just want to watch it and you don't want to do a lot of work yourself, but maybe just take a few seconds to reflect, what habits do you want to change right now? And which identity will they shape? Because your habits, it's great if you want to have a healthy habit, but in the end, you want to think about the end result in mind. So you want to get to some point, right? And you want to become another person, probably, if you're doing those habits. So where do you want to go? And what does it mean to you? What's your image of someone who is consistently doing this habit? So if we're talking about healthy eating, I'm going to dive deeper into this topic later, because it's one of my examples. But just here for you to understand, when it comes to healthy eating, I started reflecting about how is a healthy eater? Who is that person? And I realized that there's a lot of traits of that kind of person that also I might feel ashamed of, because they might be very picky with the type of food they eat. They may have like very weird habits that are socially not so accepted. Maybe they eat stuff that we look at and we wonder, what is this? And that's all things that healthy eater sometimes can be considered socially awkward, because they will prioritize their healthy food and healthy eating over whatever others around them may think about that. And that's one thing I was personally strongly struggling with. So just for you to understand, this is why you right now should think about this and think which identity your habits are supposed to shape, and see if you are proud or may feel a little ashamed, at least partly, of some parts of this new identity you are working towards. Because if this is the case, there are some blocks that will be coming up. So you gotta consider whether these two identities clash, and just in the first time, just observe and analyze, and just, be okay with it. Be okay with the clash, but just be aware of it as well. And this is all relevant. Why? Because if you have some blocks, it may be in the way of you even believing that you can become the new person. And that's very important. Belief is actually a very important component of the whole thing. So now here it is. I'm gonna dive a little more in my personal examples. So eating. That's one thing that I was touching upon before, right? So I figured that at some point I was always falling back into the same eating patterns. I love sugar, I love carbs, I love eating a lot, I love eating delicious food, and of course I like sharing my meals with people I like and love, and I'm quite sociable and agreeable. I do like to go, kind of share the moment and share everything we're doing with people around me. And it does mean that sometimes I don't put a clear cut. I don't smoke, and I've never seen the advantage of smoking. So that's something that I've been very strong on forever. So that's not, But when it comes to something that I love myself, like eating, I want to almost be in communion. I almost want to, everyone to share the same, and it makes us stronger, some sort of thing. And I realized, as I was explaining before, that healthy eaters, this group, I kind of wanted to go there because I could see all that they were doing right and the benefits for their body, for their health, but the problem was, only looking at the short-term video, I was only seeing the negatives of it. A social eater likes to eat together with others, likes not to be picky, likes to try new things and just go with the flow and not be complicated. And a healthy eater will go to the restaurant and will say, "Does your food include some type of refined sugar? Oh, no, thanks. Could you please take away this and give me this instead?" and they will go to a party and say, oh yeah, it looks delicious, I'm sorry, but I don't eat that. Or oh no, I won't have a drink, I just drink water at the moment. And actually, it's great because your body, the health of your body is much more important. And I realized that progressively, but it took me a long way. But yeah, I was only seeing the short term problem of identity. So I wasn't moving forward until actually what helped me a lot is, well, first of all, I had a lot of health issues revolving around food. I have another video actually about how I quit sugar for a year, where I dive a bit deeper into all of this. But basically, thanks to all these hardships and pains and problems, and also, you know, recurring experiences with quitting some foods and see how much better I feel, eating some foods and see how much better I feel, it brought me to the point where I'm happy and fine with a healthy eater identity, because I want to have all the energy to do. And actually, that's what I realized. If I want to be a sociable person, a social person, the more I age, the more I keep eating crap, and the less I will be, because I will have no energy left after my work to hang out with friends, to, you know, do social stuff, to be there for them if they have a problem. Also, if I have a lot of pains, and I need to lie down in my bed and I need to sleep much more because I'm just not feeling well, because I'm not eating right, then of course it takes so much more time away from my social life. That's what I realized. And when it comes to my identity, I had to shape a sentence or two sentences of why I was doing what I was doing, and two sentences, one or two sentences that would reflect this new identity of mine, and especially this why of this new identity of mine, that I would present to others. Like if others around me are asking me, but why do you eat like this and why don't you eat that, and I go like, I'd rather eat healthy than be in pain. Yeah, and I think most people can understand that, right? So identity, very important. Another personal example, and maybe you are also a workaholic. Yeah, it's also a big identity issue. So I just saw, and it's a bit of the same issue. I saw how harmful being in this workaholic mentality was to me. It was stress. I was personally stressing myself out. I didn't even need anyone outside myself to tell me to stress myself and to pressure myself. I was just putting this on myself, on my own. And I realized at some point that this workaholic mindset was really toxic to me, and that I needed to move away from it. So I made a first business attempt a couple of years back, and actually that's the story. I was so much into this workaholic modes that I wanted to prove something, and I wanted to prove myself stuff, and I thought that since I hadn't reached my entrepreneurial goals yet, which of course, I mean, it takes time, right? Well, the best way for me to translate this identity of mine of working and being successful and everything was to work so much that people would go like, oh my god, she's working so much, she must have success at the end of the tunnel, because when you work so much, that's what happens, right? Wrong. That's not what happens. What happened is I did a lot in a couple of months. I was working from, I was getting up at 5 a.m. and I was working a lot, and I was going to bed at 10 a.m. And I think most my day was just working. And then even my free time walking around, I would still be working. So I was doing stuff on my phone and stuff that I had to do. So I didn't really take any proper downtime. And yeah, what happened is I made a lot of progress. So I did start to see some success appear, and then boom, it hit me. I ended up in the hospital. I had shingles, very, very strong, just stress that I was making myself that hit me, and I was unable to work again for a week. I was so down. And I was not even, I was mid end 20s. So actually the health staff was really worried because seeing the amplitude of this, they were wondering if there was something really bad behind it, like maybe an autoimmune disease or something. So I had to go through a lot of tests, but in the end it was nothing. It was just me stressing myself out and not coming down at all. And I thought it was fine because I loved what I was doing. So I didn't see a problem in that until I saw it. So I've become much more aware of that. And over the course of the last year or 2 years, I've actually really had to work a lot on this because I had a problem with, if I really work only 6 hours a day, which is actually the maximum, you're really productive from what I've heard. If you really work only 6 hours a day, you're lazy. Do I want to be lazy? And people will see this and they will judge, and all of these issues. So I had to build a strong new identity of being a slowpreneur. So that's what I'm trying to do right now. I went through a lot of things in between, basically inventing myself the half-day sabbatical, for instance, that I would just, try and be in the mentality of today. I work a couple of hours, and once I'm done and I'm on a sabbatical and I can do whatever I want, And I had to go through this half-day sabbatical idea to realize that I have to bring it down a notch, that every day has some sabbatical in it, and I cannot constantly be on this level of stress and pressure. But it was a long journey, and now I think I've made a lot of progress when it comes to that. Every now and then I have some downfalls because there's a deadline or something, but yeah, I try to relax, and I also know that my environment helps me a lot. If I'm in an environment that is relaxing and, for instance, closer to nature or a smaller town or something, it helps me as compared to a city like Berlin, where I was living until 1 or 2 months ago, which was my basis for 2-3 years. And I don't know, I was in the middle of it, Kreuzberg, and I would always, even if I was staying at home, I was feeling the bustle. It was insane. So I don't know how this works, but Sundays were always a blessing to me because it was so quiet outside. So I had the feeling that I also had the right to be quiet, the right to be quiet and calm. What's this insane thing? Anyways, so that's another identity issue that I understood had strongly to do with my identity and values, and that I needed to shift this on a deeper level if I also wanted to change my habit. Okay, now straight into yoga. So I guess yoga, it's quite easy actually. When I was beginning 20s, mid 20s, I was quite sporty. I was running a lot. And I loved sport challenges anyways. And I was so far from being spiritual. I was just very rational. At some point I worked in finance for a couple of years. I love mathematics anyways and numbers. And yeah, I was so strong on my rational side. And I was like, yoga? Seriously? No. I tried it once, and I think it was a bit unlucky that day in this gym there was a course, and it was mainly like strange breath, like where you do it's I don't even want to do it on camera. It felt stupid, and I didn't get it. I didn't connect, and I wasn't ready back then. I just wasn't in a place where this spiritual part of yoga, which is an amazing component to it, would appeal to me. So at some point, I realized that, and luckily enough, this was a time when they started bringing out a lot of apps for yoga because, of course, yoga is very trendy, and for good reason, honestly. But I found this app called Asana Rebel, I think, and it was back then, it was for free. At least I think I could do small workouts for free, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, something like that. It's a couple of years ago already. And it was heavily focused on the sport aspect of yoga. So they took away any type of music, any type of ambience that would kind of signify some spiritual side of yoga, and they focused on the sport aspect. And that's exactly what I needed to get into it, because I wasn't ready yet to kind of do the Om and all these things, And it was amazing because it started like kind of melting my identity into, oh, I'm doing yoga. Okay, but that's okay. I'm not becoming a weird woo-woo person. Sorry, I don't want to judge anyone. And actually I've changed my opinion a lot on that. So it allowed me understanding that I had this strong identity of being a rational woman that likes numbers and does sport, proper sport. And I kind of transitioned into yoga thanks to that kind of little window of opportunity in this identity. And with time, actually, I was able to transition, open up again to this more spiritual side. And now I try to embrace the full practice of it. And I'm actually very interested in those breath works part. Not yet in yoga, but with the Wim Hof method. I think this is another story. But that was a great way for me to jump gently from one identity to the next. And meditation, it was a bit of the same. So I'm not going to repeat the story, but I discovered the benefits of meditation about 10 years ago when I had very, very strong panic attacks and agoraphobia. And I miraculously was able to solve the problem thanks to meditation 10 years ago. And I have another video if you're interested where I tell my story about that. But basically, it's really interesting because although I could see the benefits, like the incredible benefits of meditation, once I had used it back then 10 years ago for my problem and it solved my problem, I moved away from it. I didn't keep it. And it's not until about the same time as yoga, 3-4 years ago, that I started to get more consistent about my meditation practice. But also because I familiarized, I think, also with the meditation identity and image. Because sometimes, even if the identity shift is not coming from you, it may be coming from the inside. Have you noticed how sometimes you don't like, you don't like a new fashion trend at first, or you don't like meditation, it's so trendy, or yoga, or any new trends that comes, and at first you're like, this is new, this is different, this isn't me, it doesn't look like me, so I don't like it. And then because you keep seeing people talk about it, you familiarize, and all of a sudden you allow it to be at least on the surroundings of your identity, sort of. And if you do just a small step, it's easy for it to blend into your identity, because there's a lot of work that has been done outside for that. By the way, it's called marketing and advertising, and be aware of that, because it's also used not only for good things. So I'm very happy if now you like yoga, because you've seen a lot of it around, but it's probably also the reason why you really loved Coca-Cola and smoking in the first place. So pay attention, identity is being shaped outside and inside. Both happen. Okay, so now what to do? You're there, you've understood that identity is a big part of the issue if you want to change and implement new habits. So what should you do? Well, first, just be patient. First, you should observe. So the first question you should ask yourself is, how do you even see yourself, especially regarding to this habit? So I told a bit about my examples, and let's say you want to eat healthy. So how do you see yourself at the moment? Like, what do you appreciate about yourself and your identity as an eater? And can you see yourself doing the new habit at all? And if you do, can you see yourself doing this new habit forever? That's an important question here, because I see a lot of people doing challenges. I love to do them myself. I really love doing that, but with the illusion sometimes that they may stick with it. But that's a bit of a problem, because very often when you do a challenge, it helps you a lot to maybe have over ambitious goals of what your challenge is. By the way, I'm currently doing one, and my challenge is to walk 25,000 steps a day. Now look at this. This challenge, why didn't I take 10,000 steps a day? Because 10,000 steps is too easy for me. It doesn't sound like a challenge. And although I've been more loose on it over the last month, I would say, but I've been pretty regular at walking 10,000 steps since the beginning of the year. So doing a challenge about walking 10,000 steps, I think the mental strength would have been lacking, because it was just nothing special. But doing 25,000 steps is like, oh, okay, now I have to get organized around it. I have to be active and proactive, and in order to manage to do it, and also because it's just time intensive, right? But now, do I want to stick to 25,000 steps a day forever? No, that's not sustainable for me at the moment. So that's the problem I see, is when you work with challenges, which can be a good thing because it helps you experiment, sometimes it helps you to push you a bit further. And when it's easier, right, for me, it will be easier to do 10,000 steps a day once I've done 25,000 steps a day for a week, right? So it can have all these benefits. But do you see yourself doing this forever? If you don't, this is in the way of you implementing consistent, lasting habits. So ask yourself the question, is this right now a challenge? And is it helping me to shape consistent, regular habits afterwards and forever, that I want to keep forever? If not, rethink your habit, rethink what you're doing right now, and just maybe find another, remodule this habit to make it more something that you could imagine yourself doing forever. Observation. What can you do otherwise? You should observe whether you are doing any negative self-talk. When you are trying to do the habit, when you're getting up and you want to put your runner shoes on and you want to go out and run, is there a voice inside telling you like, no, this is ridiculous, you can't do it, and it won't work? Do you have any negative self-talk? This is very important, because it may be just the lazy side of you talking, but it's also probably your previous self talking a little, judging the new self that you want to introduce. And you gotta stop yourself. You gotta stop yourself, and you gotta engage in a more positive language and try to adopt more the language of your future self. Or if that's too difficult, just imagine people that would be in your group, runner people that would be encouraging you right now and telling you, even a little, even just a little, even 5 minutes, that's enough. It's already great. You've done a great job. That's the way you need to go. And last but not least, observation. What do you tell others? That's very important, because as I said in the beginning, language is a funny thing, and it reveals much more than you think. And we don't pay enough attention to that. So for instance, I've observed myself when I'm in my eating and changing eating. I'm always trying out new things, and I'm still experimenting a lot. But basically, there's a big difference. if I tell others around me, imagine I'm at my grandparents' house, for instance, and they would go like, here, don't you want some cake with your coffee? I've baked this really nice cake. Difficult situation for a social eater, isn't it? Of course. Well, sometimes I would tell them, oh no, thank you, I'm trying to quit sugar. I am trying to quit sugar. So this is my identity at the moment. It's someone who is trying to quit sugar. Hence, maybe not successfully. And I've noticed that it's very different from when I start telling people, oh no, thanks, I don't eat sugar. It's totally different. I've sent out a message that my identity has changed right now. I am a person that doesn't eat sugar. And it doesn't matter if you don't eat sugar for just a month as a challenge, or you do it as something forever. It doesn't matter. Right now, you have this identity. Go full on it and embrace it so that you can really produce the change you want. Yeah, and I guess that's something that's really important, is a message that I want to also incorporate in all of this, is that changing identity and changing habits it's simple, but it's not that easy. It's quite complex, and we very often, the failure you might experience is actually just that you're learning more information about yourself, and you are understanding why this new habit in this way doesn't work, why you don't manage to make time for this and that. And I think what's really, really important, if you want to change and if you want to progress quicker, please, please, please embrace failure. Cultivate failure. It's amazing if you do a challenge. If you love challenges, I do too. It's great. If you do a challenge and you fail, that's amazing. It's new information. So failing is a crucial part of the process, and you gotta love yourself for failing. Because the problem is, very often what happens is that we tend to send the wrong signals to our brain. So language is a big part of it, but also our attitude towards failure, or, like just these little bumps on the road, as one might say. Because if you hate yourself for failing, if you're angry at yourself, and if you start negative self-talk because you wanted to run 2 or 3 times a week for a month, but then you failed. If you start doing this, then you are being nasty towards yourself, and I guarantee your brain doesn't really like this situation. It causes stress on yourself. You're as able to cause stress on yourself as others around you. So when you do this, your brain, pretty clever, got good memory, he's gonna remember, I tried and I started, but I failed. And first of all, I failed. I don't like that. And then I got into this really bad mood, and I got angry at myself, and I don't want that. It's a really bad feeling. I hated myself. That I don't want that. So maybe we should not try again. Maybe we should just stay status quo, right? This is comfortable here, and I'm not failing because I'm not trying. So I think that's why you gotta love yourself for failing, because you're trying, and trying is great. And also, there's no way when you change a major, even if small, a major habit, when you change something major, you don't have all the information yet. You don't know yourself so well yet. You don't know how you're gonna react to this change, to this new habit. Maybe you start meditating and you had this, very romantic view of how it's gonna work. And then when you start meditation, you realize that only all your stress and problems come into your head. And you didn't know that before you would start, right? So maybe then you stop. So you fail. Did you fail at meditating? You didn't. You you, my friend, just gathered new information. So you can have a pause, a couple of days, maybe 2-3 weeks. And while you have this pause, you make a new plan. You make a new plan for a new start, for a new try. Because if it's stressing you out, maybe there's a different type of meditation that will actually be better suited to your current situation. And then you come back and you try again. And that's how it works. And every time you get better, and even in the worst case, what you're doing is you're learning a lot about yourself, you're making progress, and every time you are redoing a bit more of something healthy. So what's the problem with that? It's not an issue, right? So love yourself for failing, love yourself for trying, and also see the progress in every little step you make. So when it comes to meditation, just be happy that you did 5 minutes. You don't need to do an hour just yet. If you sit down for 5 minutes, and even though you might not have reached the state that you would have loved to reach, just see the progress. You did take this 5 minutes to meditate, didn't you now? Yeah, I think that's very important, because failing, there's this thing that if you don't accept that failing is good, then the problem is you might block everything out. It's like a black cloud that surrounds everything that you find you've not been doing perfectly. And the problem with that is it also blinds you. It kind of prevents you from looking at what you've been doing without pain, with self-compassion, self-love, looking at what you've been doing and why have I been failing? What was it? And oh, it's not a bad thing, so you can integrate the learnings and move forward. And the problem is when you block out failing because it's bad, then you kind of don't want to look back on it. It's kind of painful to think about it, to self-analyze in a way. And then what really strongly may happen is you may keep repeating the same mistake over and over and over again. So you will kind of turn into the downfall that you think that you haven't made this new habit happen just because your willpower wasn't strong enough. Well, I've got news for you. People that are best at keeping healthy habits, and that's from the book of James Clear, Atomic Habits. People who are really, really, really good at this and have really healthy habits, they actually don't use their willpower at all. And, they've kind of changed their environment over time. They've kind of put in place a lot of systems that make that they don't have to decide every day, I'm going to go and run now. I'm going to eat healthy now. So you got to understand that. And it doesn't happen from one day to another. Only very rarely. It can happen if you have a very strong, for instance, death, lethal, disease or something like that, and something that's really like you're afraid of dying because you smoke or something. Then some people happen to quit cold turkey. But if there's nothing major like that, it's just very rare. Willpower is only partly working, and you can't just rely on that. So if you think that you fail because you're weak and you don't have enough willpower, then my friend, you will probably keep repeating the same mistake over and over, and your efforts will not really make your progress. So that's the message I want to give to you, is please embrace failure and learn from it. And don't repeat the same error, and then your failure will not be for nothing. So with that in mind, I hope this helped, and I'd be very happy. It would really, really help me if you would subscribe to my channel and receive my weekly videos every week. Sorry, I've been talking for, an hour or something like that, so now I'm like a bit tired, but I'm very happy you stuck to the video until now, and Please support me and also comment. Any comment I will take into consideration and see if I can do something about it. And have a great day.